So, good afternoon, hello there, and welcome along to the horseracing.net weekend preview, focusing as we always do on Saturday's televised action over on ITV. Now, naturally and normally, we would go for the 7 races in the ITV7 permutation, the game, but because there was coverage on Friday afternoon, those races haven't been formally picked yet. So we're just going to focus on the 7 races that are going to be shown on the channel. Hopefully that marries up perfectly well, and it should do. But just a heads up that 1 or 2 races might not appear on the game tomorrow afternoon. Either way, though, they are 7 really interesting races that are due to be televised on Channel 3. And the headline is the Cambridgeshire Handicap at Newmarket. Really good card at Newmarket, a Group 2 contest, 2 Group 1s and the Cambridgeshire. This is the highlight. It's a 29-runner handicap, £74,000 to the winner this year as well. We could spend an awful long time talking about a race like this. In big field handicaps, I think it is always worth noting the draw. And there's a really interesting stat here in that each of the last 5 winners of the Cambridgeshire have all come from a high draw. That is characterised, I'd say, at about stall 20 and upwards. And several tick into that box this year, including the likes of Al Rafa, Lysander, Balgair, Dubai Mirage. They're all reasonably well fancied. And Tempest, who's the 13-2 favourite. Now, plenty like him. And that's because he has a very similar profile to some other recent winners of this race. Each of the last 2 winners have been upperly mobile types. You'll remember Lord North went on to be a Prince of Wales winner. Wissahickon as well, a proper pattern group performer, both for the John Gosden team, both landed gambles, and they progressed through the handicap ranks to go into group company. And Tempest appeals as one who could have a very similar sort of profile. He's pretty lightly raced for a 4-year-old. He's got a really nice pedigree as well, son of Kingman, half brother to a very smart performer in time test, and he's looked good so far this year. He was winning reappearance and built on that by sealing a really smooth success at Ascot last time as well. He arrives here very much on the up. He's been handed a £4 rise for that Ascot success, up to a mark of 97. Lovely sort of weight for the Cambridgeshire. He's well drawn in stall 23. Jason Watson gets the ride for Roger Charlton. Plenty will fancy him. It wouldn't be surprised to see him go off at shorter than his current price of 13-2. But that feels short enough for me, long story short. And I'm going to go with Ilarab at about 10-1. Now, I put him up yesterday on the website in the big preview, which you can read on horseracing.net. And he was about 12-1 at that time. He's still about 10s. I think he's worth chancing each way at that sort of price. And he's another upwardly mobile sort. He only made his debut back in June. He's had 4 straight wins since then. He's very much a rapid ascent. And I think he's very much clicked into place. And you may remember, if you watched ITV Racing last week or watched this episode last week, that I tipped him up to win and run well at Newbury. He did exactly that. He won a competitive handicap, the Dubai Duty-Free sponsored race. Won really, really well. I was impressed with his burst to the front that day. Looked a potential smart performer in the making. And he beat a smart field that day, included the likes of Maideny, who's shown some really good form so far this season. He's been raised £4 as well, much like Tempest. I think he's still available on a really good mark as a consequence of 94. Certainly room for manoeuvre there for the William Haggas team. Kieran Fallon booked to ride. Everything points to a big run for me from Ilarab. The one thing, though, that does contradict what I've just said, he's drawn in stall 12. And then at a bigger price as well, I think it may be worth playing another one each way, and that is Data Protection. Put him up at 33s on the website. He's now 5-0, 50-1 for the William Muir team, who are very much known for pile driver these days, aren't they? But Data Protection's shown some pretty good form so far this season. He's been in really good heart. He's won twice, won handicaps at both Sandown and the July course under this rider, Nicola Curry, a very capable rider. And he did struggle last time off a revised mark at Doncaster, but I think that's worth the giving. There weren't mitigating circumstances. He was given a particularly aggressive ride that day and just very much ran out of steam. This sort of scenario may play into his hands as a consequence. Prominent tactics will serve you well in a race like the Cambridgeshire. He's drawn in stall 21 as well. If you forgive that poor run, I think this sort of mark is within his remit. He arrives here for a mark of 89. That's just £4 higher than his last winning mark. It's a wide open affair, and I think there's worse bets than siding with a front running type to hit the frames, particularly when you're going to have multiple places on offer if you shop around, the likes of 5 and 6 places. So 50-1, data protection each way, and also Illarab as well at about 10-1 for me in the Cambridgeshire. Okay, we'll look at the remainder of the racing now. We'll go back to the start. This is the 150 at Newmarket, the first of 3 group contests over at HQ. This is the Royal Lodge Stakes for 2-year-old colts. Over a mile. 5 runners go to post here, but it's a select field of 5, and very much worth considering all 5 here. Ontario catches the eye for the Aidan O'Brien team. This yard has won each of the last 2 renewals, and he arrives here in pretty good form, Ontario. He built on a maiden success to finish a really good 3rd at this sort of level at the Curragh last time out. He's one to consider, as is recent scorer Cobe. He won a listed race last time out. Should be plenty more to come from him. That was at Salisbury. But the one to go with here for me is Gear Up. He's unbeaten. He's 2 from 2 so far. Was a maiden winner at York in July and built on that by winning the Acomb Stakes in good style last time out. Now, it is worth noting that form has rather fallen apart, the Acomb Stakes, but I think he showed a good attitude that day. I still think that it was a smart effort, all things considered. And bearing in mind all those things and the fact that he steps up in trip today, I think the extra furlong will suit him. I think everything points to a big run from Gear Up. Over to my local course now, Haydock Park. 2 races on ITV tomorrow, beginning with the 205 Close Brothers Handicap over a mile. Tricky race. Long story short, you're always doing well if you pick out a winner at Haydock Park. And there's a few to consider. Danya, he's popular in the market, arrives here on the back of some really solid efforts. Could still be more to come as well off his sort of mark. He's run with credit the last twice on the back of a win at Doncaster. Could still be more to come from him. Key to Victory, haven't seen him since the beginning of the year at Meydan, but he won a pretty competitive race over a mile back in January. He'd be interesting, up £4 from that, but he's got a long absence to defy. And bearing in mind that this is quite an open contest and there's quite a few to consider, could be worth going with Milltown Star at about 12-1. Now, he represents the Mick Shannon team. He's got Graham Lee on board, and I think he's run quite well in 2 starts so far this season. He's towards the bottom of the weights. No, he's not. He's run well in 2 starts so far this season anyway. He signed off with a really good listed win at Shaun T last November, and I think he's done pretty well in his 2 starts so far this season. He hit the frame at Goodwood in August on reappearance, and then was technically 6th at Doncaster last time out, but I quite like the way he stayed on that day. He made up lots of ground towards the end last time out. He's returned to a mile here from 7 furlongs. That should play into his hands, all things considered, especially in this sort of conditions. I think he'll relish the extra furlong. It'd be no surprise to see him go close at about 12-1. That's Milltown Star. Back to Newmarket, first Group 1 race of the day. This is the Cheveley Park Stakes Fillies Group 1 for the 2-year-olds over 6 furlongs. Another interesting race here. Some nice fillies in this race. Happy Romance, Miss Amulet both arrive here on the back of some really good performances, but I can look no further than Dandella. I think it's worth keeping the faith with her. She's unbeaten in 3 starts so far for Carl Burke and the Nick Bradley team. And she arrives here on the back of a success at the Group 2 Duchess of Cambridge Stakes at this course, on the July course, over this trip 2 months ago. I thought that was a really smart performance. She had to work hard that day. I thought she showed a really good attitude to burst to the front, really went through the motions to hit top gear that day, and then showed a really good attitude to hold on in the closing stages. And that form looks really good now as well. The runner-up, Fev Rover, has gone on to prove herself to be a really smart performer. She's gone on to win a Group 2 over in France at Shaun T. Bearing in mind that the strength of that form of the Duchess of Cambridge Stakes, I think it's worth sticking with her to pick up a first top-level success. So Dandella for me in the Cheveley Park. Back to Haydock now for their second of 2 races. 240, this is a sprint handicap over 5 furlongs. Close Brothers sponsored once again. 11 runners, Quite a few to consider here. Came from the Dark, is popular for the Ed Walker team, as is Count d'Orsay, who won last time out over course and distance. But I think Dark Shot's the way to go here, and that's because he arrives here in really good heart. And you heard me get muddled last time. This is the horse who's at the foot of the weights, not Milltown Star. Dark Shot's quite low down in the weights, and he's won 2 of his last 3 starts, including at Leicester last time out. That was only 4 or 5 days ago, so he's quickly turned out here, but he does so under just a £4 penalty based on the style of that Leicester success. A length and a half over the minimum trip. It looks within reach, that sort of penalty. He's in really good heart at the moment, holding his form really well. So I think I don't think he'd be fazed by this sort of quick turnaround. He's a prominently ridden type. I think he could be tough to crack here under Jamie Gormley in this sort of mood. And he's about 7-1 as well. So a little bit of value in siding with Dark Shot in the 240. Almost there now, on to the feature. Well, the Group 1 feature at least, the Middle Park Stakes. This is the 6 furlong equivalent of the Cheveley, but for the colts. And yeah, again, another pretty hot race here. Some really nice looking colts in here. Minzal, of course, won at York last time out. The Jim Crack. You've got Method, who's unbeaten in 2 starts, won a listed race in really good style at Newbury back in July. Lucky Vega, another one, the Irish Raider for Jessica Harrington, won the Phoenix Stakes, already a proven Group 1 performer. He has to bounce back, though, from a slightly below par run in the National Stakes last time out. Minzal certainly one to consider. He should be on the premises on the back of that York win. But long story short, I think Supremacy is the way to go here. I've been really taken by him so far. He's unbeaten. He's won 2 of his 3 starts to date, so far. And he was a really taking winner of the Group 2 Richmond Stakes at Goodwood back in July. That was an all-the-way success, a 4-length win that day. Really impressive the way he burst clear from the field. That looks really strong form. I think he can build on that here by bursting to success again. I think he'd be a tough nut to crack from the front. At a bigger price, I wouldn't give up yet with Tactical, the Raw Runner. He disappointed at Deauville last time out in the pre-morning, yeah. He was only 5th behind Campanelle, but I think that was a pretty hot race, to be honest. The likes of Nando Parado and Campanelle and Rhythm Master all in front of him that day. Andrew Balding was on Nick Luck's podcast as well, saying that he felt that the conditions were particularly soft in France that day. A return to a sounder surface will help him. He's 12-1, but based on the form of his win on the July course and the July Stakes back in July, he would have strong claims as well. I wouldn't give up on Tactical just yet. And last but not least, we'll jump over to Ireland, to the Curragh, for the Beresford Stakes Group 2 race. And I suppose the first thing to say here is it's slightly disappointing not to see High Definition over in Newmarket for the Royal Lodge. He does go for the Beresford instead. And long story short, I think he's the one they've all got to beat. He's looked a really smart type. He's got an excellent pedigree, son of Galileo. He's a full brother to the Group 3 winner, Innisfree, won a Group 3 race as a juvenile. And he's had just the 1 start so far. It was a winning debut run at the Curragh, over a mile. I thought there was plenty to like about that. He looked a really smart type. He did plenty wrong that day, but it was difficult not to be taken with the way that he made a sweeping run from last to first and won pretty cosily in the end as well, to be honest. He strikes as one who's open to any amount of improvement now, upgraded straight to Group 2 level. Aidan O'Brien, as you'd expect, has a really good record in this race. He's won every single renewal since 2011. And a bit of trivia for you here. The last horse not to be trained by Aidan O'Brien was Casamento back in 2010. So High Definition can continue Aidan O'Brien's stranglehold on the Beresford Stakes and justify favouritism. Okay, so that was the view on all 7 races over on ITV on Saturday. Apologies if 1 or 2 of the races don't make it into the game, but hopefully a few pointers for you. We'll be back next week to take a look at the Saturday's racing. We'll also have a word on the ARC, but the video will be Saturday only. So if you do want to keep up with the ARC, do head over to horseracing.net. We've got a contenders series building up to the big race, looking at the likes of Enable, Love and Stradivarius. We'll have previews on site as well for both the English and the French action. And as always, if you have enjoyed this video, do like and subscribe, and we'll be back with you shortly.